Are we live? Where's my... Oh, there it is. Oh, I have stuff on my lens. Hang on a second. Oh, weird. Now I can't see me. Can you see me? Did I mess up my camera?
I see you.
Okay, alright. I think my internet might be slow today. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday morning. Welcome, welcome, welcome. This is Samantha Studebaker coming at you from beautiful Southwest Georgia. And this is our Saturday morning mastermind. We all come together every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern to, work on bettering ourselves, creating a better future for ourselves, and becoming the best version of us that we can possibly be. I'm here with my good friends, Sandy Root, Catherine Clement, and Mr. Dan Smith. So guys, go ahead and just introduce yourselves, and then we'll just jump into the program. Good morning, everyone. Happy Saturday morning. Welcome, welcome. Oh, what do we have on? I have a repeat. Do I have something play in the background?
Yeah.
That's weird. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right, is there an echo, or is that just me? Is my imagination?
You're fine on this end.
Okay. So go ahead. Did you hear? Or did,
You're fine on this end. I hear you fine.
Okay. All right. So your intro then.
Good morning. This is Catherine Clement from Boulder, Colorado, and it's a beautiful day. Maybe next week it'll be warm enough to go out there and broadcast from outside, and then our birds can compete with each other, Samantha.
Good morning, Sandy Root here in Brooklyn, New York. Beautiful sunny spring day. The birds are chirping. It's so lovely. But yeah, I look forward to sharing how to live courageously today. Over to you, Dan.
Good morning. This is Dan Smith from Boise, Idaho. And kind of a ditto type situation. Got a beautiful morning going here in Boise. So glad to be here and welcome.
Awesome. I'm glad everybody's having wonderful weather and doing great this morning. Welcome to everybody that's hanging out with us this morning. If you're on the event page, go ahead and post on there. Let us know where you're hanging out from. And let's see, I just want to jump over here real quick and see who's with us so far. Deb. Good morning, Deb. Don't have sound. Okay, well, I hope that you get that figured out. And hopefully you can hear us. Sure who else is hanging out with us. I see a few other folks. Let's see. Okay. Makaram. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce your name or not, but welcome. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. Last week we started chapter, what was this, chapter 9 or chapter 8? Let's see. Chapter 8. We started chapter 8 with the ingredients of the success type personality and how to acquire them. And we talked about first of all, we kind of covered the fact that, once we realize that we can control our habits and our mindset and all of that kind of thing, is that we can literally choose the habits that we want to pick up and the habits that we don't want to pick up. And so by jumping into chapter 8, where it talks about acquiring the success type personality, it's literally identifying the traits of a successful person and then choosing to make yourself have the habits of a successful person. So the first couple of things that we talked about was a sense of direction and understanding. And of course, a sense of direction means knowing where you're going in life, having goals for achieving certain specific things. And you know, every day on our morning mindset call, we have Monday through Friday, we talk about having a major definite purpose in our lives. And recently we began reading that major definite purpose on our morning call, and I felt like that's been just a really, really powerful message to remind us that, you know, if you don't have a sense of direction or you don't know where you're going, then it doesn't matter what path you take, that's going to get you. It's going to get you to the same kind of place, which is nowhere, right? You know, if you know where you're going, you can map out a plan to get there. If you don't, then you're never going to reach any goals. So it's important to have that sense of direction and determine what it is that you want to accomplish in your life, and that's one major key. That's the #1 key to a successful person. So developing that habit is key. And so, you know, if you kind of think about what it is that you want, you come up with a design for your life, if you will, or a mission statement. I know I've called it that before. Is then to write it out in the form of like our major definite purpose, which we talk about on our daily call. Where do I want to go with that? So basically, I've lost my train of thought. So, guys, if you want to add something to that real quick, I get my brains back in order.
Sure.
My dog's over here rubbing up against my leg, distracting me.
I'll actually share something from last night. It may be a little off the course, but you know, we've talked before in cybernetics about how really taking that time. Have we gotten to that part in this book, or am I thinking of when I've read it before, where you sit for half an hour a day and you sort of imagine your life, how you want it to be, and you're picturing it, and you're really relaxed. And I've started doing these meditations on YouTube. When I go to bed, I'll just put the earphones on, and they have binaural beats in them. But I found that when I'm using that, it's really helping my visualizations so much more powerfully. It's almost like if I feel like I go into a negative thought, that I'm like, no, get out of there, because I'm afraid with the binaural beats that it's going to get stuck in there. So it forces me more to really focus on those visions, what I want, and I found that I'm able to visualize a lot easier with them. So I can post some of those meditations in the group later. There's this one called nerve regeneration treatment. So I just imagine like the nerves in my brain rewiring themselves to that vision of what I'm wanting while I'm doing this, you know, having the sounds of the binaural beats in the background, and then envisioning that. So that's something I'll share in the group.
You know, basically what we're talking about here is something that we all do. We all do it every single day. And just that most of us do it in a negative sense, and that's called worry. So really what in essence we're doing is we're learning how to use worry, but we're using it in a positive sense. And so when you start out with a situation where you're worrying about something, you start out with a negative a picture inside of your mind, and you begin with what Maxwell Maltz calls, you begin with your suppose, and you start saying, well, suppose that, you know, the worst possible thing did actually come about, and how awful would that be? And so you actually begin to build these mental pictures and visualizations within your mind of you know, the worst possible sense. It's like if your child, for instance, was supposed to call you at 7, and they don't call you at 7. Now it's 8 o'clock. Now it's 8:30 or whatever. And so your mind immediately goes to the negative side of things. That you know, oh my gosh, they've been in a car wreck, and you begin visualizing. You see them in a hospital in an emergency room and blood everywhere. I mean, this is kind of a graphic extreme, but I'm using it as an example that you actually worry inside of your mind, and you create these scenarios, these awful situations. So what we're doing here is learning how to control worry, but we use it in a positive sense. And so you begin with your suppose. You suppose, well, what would be the best possible thing that could actually happen here? If I was to live the best life that I could possibly live, how would I live that? What kind of house would I have? What kind of a car would I drive? What kind of business, or what kind of a job situation would I be in? And so you actually begin to worry, but you're worrying in a positive sense. And so it's a matter of learning how to control the thoughts that come into your mind, the thoughts that you actually allow to stay there, and building positive images in your mind. Oh my gosh, what if I could build this business? What if I could build this to a $100,000 a month income? Oh my gosh, what would I do with that? How would I live? What kind of car would I drive? What kind of house would I live in? What would I be doing? What would my life look like? Oh, this is incredible. And it's just a matter of retraining the brain, retraining the mind to think the thoughts that you want to think, and not the thoughts that just drift into your mind, into your consciousness, and taking control of the thoughts that you think. So anyway, I'll pass it on over to somebody else.
Are you frozen, Catherine? I think she's frozen. She's frozen to smile. That's awesome. Okay, well, if you come back on, just jump in whenever you feel like it, Catherine. Okay, so then, yeah, that's a great point, Dan. Is to recognize that we already do this. That's the key. Is that we already have these thoughts processes going on in our heads, and successful people take control of that thought process and use it in the way that they want to achieve things. So they decide on whatever goal it is that they want to achieve, and then they use that mechanism in their mind to visualize the outcome that they want, versus doing the thing that 90% of the population does, which is worry about the things they don't want. And of course, when you worry about things that you don't want, a lot of times happens is that those things come about in your life. And so you don't want to do that. You want to take control, which is why we're studying this book in the first place, because this helps us understand how our brain works, how we have control over it, how we can take advantage of that and use it to accomplish the things that we want in our lives. Now, the next thing it was talking about was is that another successful trait, or another trait that successful people have, is understanding. And they were talking about understanding the way of communicating with other people, and how you can you have to make sure that you look at things from another person's point of view. And again, this kind of comes down to taking control of our own thoughts, because sometimes we'll have a situation happen, and I think it gave the example of, if you, in your relationship with your spouse, maybe that spouse does something that, kind of annoys you. And then you have to kind of look at it from that other person's point of view. Are they sitting there picking their teeth or leaving the toilet seat up or whatever just to annoy you? Of course not, But yet sometimes we take things like that personally, as if they are doing it purposefully to annoy us, right? And the same thing kind of works in the workplace. Maybe we have coworkers that do all these little things that annoy you for whatever reason, but when you can look at things from the other person's point of view and realize, okay, that person's not out to get me, they're just out to do, they're out going our own goals, and we can relate to other people better by kind of looking at things from their perspective, as well as seeing your own, as well as seeing the big picture. Then you're going to be able to get along better with people as well, because I think the biggest key with that part of it is not taking everything so personally. It's just to realize that everybody has their own life that they're living, and that they have a different perspective on things. And so I don't know, what do you guys think about that?
Well, I'll chime in here a little bit. Is this working? Yeah. Okay. It's absolutely right. We're our worst own enemy. Our minds are. Sometimes I think it's our worst enemy and our best friend all at the same time. We just have to learn how to use it properly, and that's why we get together on these masterminds. It's more than just, being here and talking to one another and talking to you, but we're just connecting energetically and helping build each other's vibration that way. And one of the things that I was just on a program last night doing, I do a lot of mindset work, because I think that some of the things that we are striving for in our lives, and some of the things that we want and we feel like we need, I think we have to get to the right place in our life where we're ready for some of those things. In other words, we might think that we want a $30,000 a month income or something, but can we really handle that right now? I mean, would it really be spent in the most, best for everyone sort of thought process, or would we squander it, in ways that maybe weren't as productive and stuff? So sometimes I think we really have to prepare ourselves for the success that we seek. And as we interact with people, and we come across things that they're doing that annoy us, I would just ask you, I totally get what you're saying, Samantha, about don't take it personal. On the other complete opposite side of that, I would say take it completely personally, because there's something about the action that that person is taking that's annoying you. There's something about that that is showing you something within yourself that needs to be loved. And so in that moment when you're feeling that agitation or that rub, if you can just look at that situation from an outside perspective and say, like for instance, is this person attention seeking or something? And you're like, oh my gosh, that person is just blah, blah, blah. But if you look at that situation and you think, wow, are there times in my life when I've been attention seeking? Not that that's good or bad, but it's something. And yes, and just love yourself, love that part of yourself for wanting to be recognized for what you're doing, or wanting to be special or heard, or just love that part of yourself. And I think as we start to love more of those parts of ourselves, those people will stop showing up in our face like that.
I think that's a great point, Catherine, that when you do have things that kind of rub you the wrong way, there's a reason. There's something inside yourself that you need to kind of recognize and figure out what that is, because a lot of times that's something that can help you grow and become a better version of yourself, is to recognize those things and stop letting them aggravate you, but to identify them and see if you can dig out the root cause of it, because maybe there's something, like you were saying, that you need to work on in order to get past that, because obviously, generally in my experience, that, when things happen and they annoy me, it's not that the other person did something to piss me off or whatever. They're just going about their day doing their own thing. It's like, when you're driving in traffic and somebody cuts you off, it's not like they're purposely picking you out of the whole rest of the world and cutting you off just to make you mad. But, what is it? Why am I upset? If that upsets me, what is it that is really, bugging me about that? And I was reading in the book Awaken the Giant Within from Tony Robbins, and he talks about things along that lines of when strong emotions come up in your mind, is to really think about exactly what you're feeling. And if you feel like you're really angry, think about it and be like, okay, wait, am I really angry, or am I just a little annoyed about this? Or, what is it about this situation that is aggravating me for some reason? And when you can identify that thing, that a lot of times it can take the steam right out of it and help you move forward in, whatever situation you're trying to overcome. Any other thoughts? Okay, so one of the other things it was talking about with understanding was to recognize that when you make mistakes in your life, that you are not the mistake, that you have just made a mistake. It's like like if you were baking a cake and you pulled down the salt instead of pulling down the sugar or whatever, and poured a teaspoon of salt in there, and it ruined your cake. Does that mean you're a bad cook? No, of course not. It just means you made a mistake. And the same thing happens in our lives. Sometimes we make mistakes. And it doesn't mean that you have ruined your life. It doesn't mean that you are that mistake. You just have to kind of recognize that you've made a mistake in your life. I want to just kind of give kind of an example. You know, when I was younger, I had a series of, you know, not so great relationships, and I think a lot of times many of us go through this when we're young, is that we get with people that are not good for us, and we have experiences that are, you know, unpleasant, and sometimes that can really take a toll on your emotional well-being, and maybe over time, if you keep ending up in like crappy relationships for some reason or another, is that you even identify yourself as always getting in a bad relationship, or that person who I don't even know what you would call that, but you know, I mean, if you see yourself as always attracting unpleasant people, you know, you always you know what I'm kind of saying, guys? And you know, if you are identifying yourself as that person, then that's kind of what you end up attracting. Whereas if you just realize, okay, I've made a mistake, I made a bad choice, you know, I shouldn't have done that, but I don't ever have to do that again if I don't want to, you know, and then that is kind of like taking you're not identifying yourself as that, not becoming that person, but instead just recognizing it as a mistake. Same thing with business, is if you make a business mistake, it doesn't mean you're a failure, it just means you've made a mistake. Thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with that. You know, and I brought that up a little bit. I think it was last week. The more I study these materials that we're going through in my personal study, the more I come to understand the importance of words and the power of words, and the language that we use. We're our own worst enemy. I think somebody else said that earlier this morning, that we are our own worst enemy. And I know that that was true for me, and probably still is to an extent. But the more aware that I am of it, you know, there's what's called the language of the poor. There's the language of the rich. There's the language that you use to describe yourself to yourself. And I've got a book here, Maxwell Maltz, or excuse me, not Maxwell, John Maxwell, I'm sorry. It's called Failing Forward. And I've been through a divorce. I was married for 23 years, and I was kind of fat, dumb, and happy and thought things was great. One day my wife looked at me and said, "I don't love you," and I never have. And I was, oh, okay, gee, that's really interesting, you know, after 23 years of marriage, and she bailed out. That was like 16 years ago. And it just totally blindsided me. And I mean, just kind of like you was talking about, Samantha, just a series of bad decisions you make, or bad things that happen to you in your life. And for a long time, you know, I thought that I was a failure in life. And so in speaking to myself, I described myself to myself as a failure. The language that you use, the words that you say out of your own mouth when nobody else is around, that comes back in and you hear yourself saying it, and the impact that those words have on you. And I'm remarried now, and I'm really happy. In fact, in many ways, I'm 100 times more happy than I ever was in my first marriage. But I was reading this book one night, and really seriously, I can't even remember exactly what the book was talking about, but it's talking about failing through life, that we fail our way forward. Literally, you fail, you take ground by failing your way forward in life. And I looked over at my wife, and I asked her, "How do you see me? When you look at me, what do you see?" You know, because I mean, I was really curious, you know, and she says, "I see a successful person." And I don't see that. All I see is a failure. All I see is all the failures, all the bad things. And I was going through another program here, a Jack Canfield program recently, and he made a statement. He said, list all the things that you've succeeded at and see if you can come up with 100 things in like 10 minutes. And so I started listing things on this list of paper, and like in 10 minutes I had like over 150 really major victories in my life. But I didn't see the victories. I didn't see the successes. All that I was dwelling on was my failures in life. And when you talk to yourself, your self-talk, when you're telling yourself that you're a failure, what do you attract? You attract more failure. Whatever you dwell on in life, the direction of your gaze, so to speak, whatever you set your gaze on is what actually expands and grows in your life. So if you're describing yourself as a failure to yourself, what are you going to attract? What are you going to bring into your life? More failure, more downtimes. And so what we're really doing here, in essence, is we are controlling the thought, we are controlling the speech, the language patterns that comes out of our own mouth, that we program our own thinking, our own heart with, to move those forward in a positive light. So you actually dwell on your positives, you dwell on your successes and your victories, and you minimize the losses and the failures in your life. And one of the mentors that I listen to says there is no failure, there's only lessons learned. You know, so you take the lessons from life and you build on those and you expand on those, and you say, well, gee whiz, that didn't work, so I'm not going to do that again. So when you talk to yourself, do you describe yourself to yourself as a failure? Every time you say, oh my gosh, I can't believe I did that, I'm so stupid. Well, that I'm so stupid tag that you put there at the end of that, your subconscious mind can't take a joke, and that's what's actually programmed into your thinking. Instead of saying that, well, I screwed up. I am that which acts, but I am not my actions. So yes, I did something, I tried something, it was an experiment, and it didn't work out. I failed at that, but that don't mean that I'm a failure. So anyways, I hope that's coming through what I'm trying to communicate. So I'll turn it back over to somebody else.
Yeah, that was perfect, Dan. That you know, I was kind of stumbling over my words this morning, couldn't get my head quite straight, but that's exactly what I was trying to cross. I mean, that's the most important thing, really, is to understand that you are not your mistakes, and that they're only lessons learned. You know, just like within school, you learn something. If you don't get the right answer, you try and try again until you do. And that's why they put this as one of the success qualities, or one of the main qualities of the success type personality, is because successful people don't see themselves as the mistakes they've made. They see the mistakes as lessons that have helped them move forward in their lives. And that's where the magic happens, right? You know, because so many of us, you know, throughout our lives have allowed ourselves to have that bad self-talk where we talk down about ourselves. We tell ourselves that we're, you know, a failure, or we, you know, are always depressed, or we're just, you know, or we're fat, or whatever thing it is that you're struggling with. If you're constantly telling yourself that thing, that's exactly what you want to be, exactly what you're going to become. So the key is to choose the thoughts that you want to think so that you can have the results that you want to have. And so that's why we talk about all these different things in the book, is so that we can understand, is A, that we can program our minds to think in the way that we want to think, and to know, okay, these are that we want to work on, right? So Sack is on the event page, and he said, let me just kind of scroll down here. Hey, Sack, good morning, by the way. He said, mistakes are part of learning. You can't learn unless you try and fail. That's so true. I did something, it didn't work, now I've learned a new way of how not to do something. Great story, Dan. Exactly, Zach. Thanks for sharing that. Let's see here. Okay, so did you, Catherine or Sandy, do you want to add to that before we jump into the next part? Good to go? Okay. Let me grab my little paper here. Okay, so the next part we're jumping into real quick, or about to, is courage, and you know, how to live more courageously. So the next trait of a successful person is courage. Having a goal and understanding the situation are not enough. You must have the courage to act, for only by action goals, desires, and beliefs be translated into realities. Admiral William F. Hansley's personal motto was a quotation from Nelson: "No captain can do very wrong if he places his ship alongside that of an enemy. The best defense is a strong offense," is a military principle, says Hansley, but its application is wider more. All problems, personal, national, or combat, become smaller if you don't dodge them but confront them. Can you live life more courageously? That's a question I'll be answered in psychocybernetics. When you systematically strengthen your self-image and understand that you are not your mistakes, you find it infinitely easier to take risks without undue worry over what others will think or temporarily appearing foolish if you stumble. How can you be more assertive and forceful in advocating your ideas in the workplace? How can you more clearly and assertively ask for the order at the conclusion of a sales presentation? How can you take the dance floor even if you've too long believed you have two left feet? How can you embark on an entirely new career or avocation in life when axiomatically, is that how you pronounce it? We have to look that one up. When axiomatically it's tough for an old dog to learn new tricks. How do you bounce back from severe adversity? These are all examples of living courageously, and they all require a bulletproof self-image that can stand up under pressure. Why not bet on yourself? Nothing in this world is ever absolutely certain or guaranteed. Often the difference between a successful person and a failure is not one's better ability nor ideas, but the courage that one has to bet on his ideas, to take a calculated risk, and to act. We often think of courage in terms of heroic deeds on the battlefield, in a shipwreck, or during a crisis, but every day living requires courage too. Standing still, failure to act, causes people who are faced with a problem to become nervous, to feel stymied or trapped, and it can bring on a host of physical symptoms. I tell such people, study the situation thoroughly. Go over it in your imagination with the various courses of action possible to you and the consequences that may follow each course. Pick the course that gives the most promise and go ahead. If we wait until we are absolutely certain and be sure before we act, we will never do anything. Anytime you act can be wrong. Any decision you make can turn out to be the wrong one, but we must not let this deter us from going after the goal we want. You must daily have the courage to risk making mistakes, risk failure, risk being humiliated. A step in the wrong direction is better than staying on the spot all your life. Once you're moving forward, you can correct your course as you go. Your automatic guidance system cannot guide you when you're stalled, standing still. Lee Iacocca has said that decisiveness is the #1 characteristic you look for in key people to surround himself with and depend on. General Norman Schwarzkopf has said that leadership requires making decisions. Most leaders agree that success comes from decisiveness and course correction, not long delays and procrastination to attempt making only flawless choices. Few successes are achieved via a straight line from point A to point B, from idea to fruition. Most successes are achieved in a zigzag manner. Prescription. Be willing to make a few mistakes, to suffer a little pain to get what you want. Don't sell yourself short. Most people, said General R.E. Chambers, once chief of the Army Psychiatry and Neurology Consultant Division, don't know how brave they really are. In fact, many potential heroes, both men and women, live out their lives in self-doubt. If they only knew they had deep resources, it would help give them the self-reliance to meet most problems, even a big crisis. You've got the resources, but you never know you got them until you act and give them a chance to work for you. Another helpful suggestion is to practice acting boldly and with courage in regards to little things. Do not wait until you can be a big hero in some dire crisis. Daily living also requires courage. By practicing courage in little things, we develop the power and talent to act courageously in more important matters. I want to just stop and talk on this just a little bit, about having that courage to make those little mistakes and realize that, just because you make a mistake doesn't mean that, it's the end of the world. I mean, I don't know about you guys, and I kind of imagine that, you know, Sandy and Catherine, Dan, you guys have probably made some videos online and that sort of thing. You know, I've made quite a few videos. And, you know, when I first decided that I was going to do video, I was kind of a little nervous about it. I didn't know how it was going to look on video. I didn't know how people were going to react to me. I didn't know, you know, what that was going to end up being, because in my daily life, I find myself stumbling over my words a lot of times. You know, sometimes I get tongue-tied, and you know, maybe I lose my train of thought. And I figured, okay, if I do that in daily life, it's possible that might help it on video too, right? And so, you know, I made some videos. I stumbled over my words, you know, and when that would happen, I would just giggle at myself, you know, because if you can't giggle at yourself, you're not ever going to get over those humps, you know. And over time, as I've gotten on video more and more, you know, my words become slightly more fluent. I still will stumble here and there randomly and, you know, say my words the wrong way or whatever. And, you know, but I realized that if I didn't at least take that step and do something, you know, I wasn't going to get forward. I wasn't going to make any forward progress. And, you know, because the other thing is that, you know, I've always been a very introverted individual, and you know, I didn't have a lot of friends when I was in school. Having a conversation with people like this, with you guys on here, this is like the most social I've ever been in my entire life. All prior up until being on the internet, I barely would have conversations with people unless I knew them for a long time. You know, if I'd worked with them for a while, or they were part of my family, or, you know, that sort of thing. And it took a major I don't know, leap of faith, or a just major stepping outside my comfort zone to take that step and get on video. And I know that that's something that is something that a lot of people struggle with. And but the thing is if you can laugh at yourself, that's the key right there. You just have to be able to laugh at yourself. You know, be goofy, make faces, roll your eyes, you know, sit as if you're sitting there with your best friend or your husband or whoever it is, and just don't worry about what other people think. That's the thing right there. Just don't worry about what other people think and start doing something. Got thoughts?
Yeah, that was my first thought too about, you know, when we started doing videos, you know, that nervousness at first about it. But then I've been watching my courageousness getting more courageous since then, you know, like then there was Hangouts, and, you know, first I was nervous about doing Hangouts, and then I just started my own conference call, when was that? Probably in February. And the first day of my first conference call, I couldn't eat. I was so nervous, and I'm like, in my mind, I'm thinking, I can get on video, people see me, what am I so nervous about getting on the phone about? But, you know, there's this fear of forgetting what I was saying, or not knowing what I'm saying, or, you know, whatever people are thinking. But then after that first conference call, it was like I got a feedback, and it was good. And the second conference call, I was still a little nervous, but then the more and more you do it, you just get comfortable with it. And so it's that courage gets you to where you want to go. And, you know, it's even funny, Samantha knows I popped out on the morning mindset call this week that we have every morning to read the major definite purpose. And I was even nervous about that, but I think I was probably the first one that saw Paul's post about it. And at first I ignored it, and I just said, nah. And then I went back a few minutes later, and it was still there, and nobody responded. I'm like, Sandy, just do it. So, you know, just making yourself take those steps. I'm like, you know, being the first one to read that. And after I did it, it feels good. After each courageous act, it's like you feel this aliveness. There's like this tingle going through your body, and it feels good. Even if you make a mistake, it feels really good, because you know that you took that step and that it's helping you grow. And so, you know, my next step will be speaking. You know, that is one of my dreams, is to be a speaker. So I know that first time speaking, I'll probably be shaking on stage. Like, even when I went up to Marshall's last event, a lot of you know I was hypnotized on stage. I was up there shaking. I didn't have to speak or do anything, but I was shaking. So, you know, that's the next step. But I'm ready, and I'm ready to take that step, because I feel like that courage from that first video just keeps growing and growing and growing. And I realize that taking those courageous steps just makes me feel really alive, and I love to do it now. When there's an opportunity for me to step forward, I take it now, where in the past I would have said, no, let somebody else do it, I'll sit back. Now I'm more of like, yeah, I'm going to go for that, no matter what. You know, if I fail, if I look like a fool, whatever, who cares? You know, it's for me. So, yeah, I'll pass it on.
Yeah, I agree with all that. You know, when I reached out to you, Samantha, and asked could I be on your hangout here, that was a huge step for me. So, you know, I completely 100% understand what you're saying, and yeah, I just want to share something with you. This is going to sound weird, but I had diarrhea for like a year, and the reason I had that is when I started my painting business, I was like 29 years old, and I was so scared for an entire year that literally my food wasn't digesting right, and I had like constant diarrhea for a year. And at the end of the year, I looked back and I looked at myself and I said, you know what? I'm still here. I'm still standing. You know, I wasn't buried in the you know, an avalanche of whatever, the overwhelm of starting my painting company back then. You know, and I mean, please excuse me. I know that sounds weird and all that, but you know, that's the way that the fear that I had for that entire first year, the physiology of my body, that's how my body reacted to that fear. And yet, after I got through that first year, and I was still standing, the second year was easier, and then the third year was easier. And you know, I did it for 26 years. And so the same thing here. You know, just yeah, making that first video. You know, I remember when answering machines first became popular. I wouldn't talk to an answering machine for probably the first 2 years. You know, you call somebody and their answering machine would answer. I would just hang up because I ain't going to talk to a machine. Well, in a sense, I'm standing here or sitting here in my office right now. I'm looking into a little camera that's right here in front of me. Nobody else here is in the room. We're all connected. You know, we're all in different parts of the United States. And whoever's listening, we're all connected in a sense, but we're not here together. But we're part of the family of man, and we're connected through electronics. And so, yeah, just to make the first video, I was petrified, you know, even leaving that first message on an answering machine, you know, back, what was it, 15 years ago or more, you know. So, yeah, it's taking a bold step, stepping out there on faith, and really, from my perspective, what it is building up your want, your goal in life. You have to have a goal, and building up that want to where you want that more than you want the humiliation or the fear that you're going to have to live with or move through in order to attain the thing that you want. So yeah, it's taking those little steps of faith, little steps of courage, putting one step in front of the other, one foot in front of the other, day by day by day by day. And as you grow, years ago I heard something that we have a circle that is around us, and that's our comfort zone. And your comfort zone may start out like this. You know, it's really small, but as you expand, your comfort zone gets a little bit bigger. And it's like a rubber band that gets stretched, and once that rubber band is stretched, it never 100% goes back to the original shape that it was in. So what we're really doing is expanding our rubber band every day, expanding our comfort zone out there a little bit more, and a little bit more, and a little bit more every day. And so what this used to be the norm, now this is the new norm, and just making it bigger and bigger and bigger as we go. So I'll pass it on over to somebody else.
Well, I stepped out of my comfort zone yesterday a little bit. You guys know I've been having trouble with my computer, and it's been crashing on these Hangouts for the last few weeks, and I was sort of worried in a way that people were like, well, good gosh, why didn't she just go get a new computer? But there's some, you know, situations going on where I'm trying to balance a few different things and make several different things happen at the same time. And just going out and buying a new computer wasn't necessarily one of those things. So I have been sitting on the fence. It's very interesting because we talk about successful people make quick decisions. And I had been sort of sitting on the fence, and I wasn't making progress. And I had to start looking at, okay, what am I afraid of? why am I not stepping forward? Why is the right solution not coming to me? And I finally figured it out. I wasn't asking the right questions. So once instead of saying, like I started asking, how can I have a computer that helps me do what I need to do? And that turned out to be a better question for me. Instead of, do I need a Mac? Do I need a Windows? Do I need a refurbished machine? Do I need to buy it from Walmart? Do I need to go to Best Buy? Those were the questions I was asking, and I wasn't getting the right answer. So yesterday I started asking different questions, and believe it or not, the guidance I got was to take my computer apart and fix it. Well, I'm not a computer repair person, so I was like, you got to be kidding me. But thank goodness for YouTube. So I, pull up YouTube, and I watched a video on how to take my computer apart, and I said, okay, this is it. So I had it all apart, and I wound up having to put it back together 3 times before it worked. But hey, it's 10 minutes left on the Hangout, and I'm still on here, so it's all good. Ask the right questions.
That's awesome, Catherine. I'm so glad that you were able to do that, and that's so true. Asking yourself the right questions is such an important step. And one I was I don't want to say I was reading a book. I think I was actually watching another hangout where a couple of folks were talking about fear and moving forward in your life and having more success and that sort of thing. And they were talking about just living on the edge of fear. And if you want to have success, if you want to have more growth in your life, if you want to expand your rubber band, as Dan was talking about, was to actually live on the edge of it. And it's not like you have to go from not ever having done video to instantly being on stage. And it's taking those little baby steps just outside the edge, and as you're doing that, you're gradually, just slightly pushing the limit on your rubber band and expanding your area, so that it's not like you're taking these huge jumps, which you can if you're willing to make that kind of a that kind of a jump, but if you want to have continual progress and you want to always be expanding yourself, and you always want to be moving your business forward, or you always want to be having better relationships with people, or expanding in your career, or whatever it happens to be, is just to take those little steps, is just do little things that just feel a little bit scary, and each time that you do that little scary thing again, your comfort zone expands a little bit, and you're able to expand and then pick the next thing that feels a little bit scary. And as you live on that edge of fear, that's actually where the magic happens in everything. And so that's kind of what I've been really focusing on, is watching myself, kind of feeling out there. And like Sandy was saying, is when she saw that post in the group about getting on and reading the major definite purpose, is that would be an indicator, that one of those little things where it's like, oh, I don't have to do that, or, well, maybe I could, if you're sitting there thinking that and wondering, okay, is that going to make me feel a little bit nervous, then that's probably a step that you need to take. And it's like just this week we were issued from one of the leaders in our company a 30 videos in 7 days challenge. And when I first heard it, I was like, oh no, I don't have time for that. I can't squeeze that into my schedule. I can't, I don't know, if I commit to it, then I don't do it, then I'm going to feel like a failure, or whatever it is. And I kept having these kind of back and feelings, and I kind of stewed around that for, I don't know, probably 24 hours before I was like, wait a second, you can do this, just do it, and so I decided to go ahead and just do it. And I've had a little bit of struggles here and there with my internet, trying to get the videos uploaded as quickly as possible, but once I made that kind of decision to take on that challenge, to step just that little bit outside my comfort zone, because I wasn't making videos every day. I wasn't trying to throw every good, positive value thought out into the world, and that was what it was going to take. It was going to take me making that effort in order to do that, which is just a little bit outside my comfort zone. And And since I've been participating in it, I've just been feeling great. You know, just like what Sandy was saying, it's just feeling great when you're on that. It gives you that energy. It pushes you forward. It lifts you up and makes you realize that you're alive. You know, and so that's just something that I highly recommend to you, is just to watch for those little things that come up that you feel a little bit nervous about, and those are the actions. It's kind of like that is your guide. Literally, if you're asking the right questions, like what Catherine was talking about, asking the right questions to get you the answer that you need to move you forward, and things will come up that make you feel a little bit nervous. Excuse me. That's the direction that you need to go. It's almost like a big bright light shining you the way. So, guys, my throat's getting a little bit scratchy. So, if you guys have anything else you want to add before we wrap up, I think we're kind of close to the top of the hour. So I don't know if we should go into the next section, or what do you think? What do you want to do?
Yeah, there's a book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And I can't remember the author's name. I've got it over here on a shelf, but I have to dig it out. But she has 5 fear truths on there, and I'm trying to remember what they are. I know the rule number 1 of her rules is that as long as you continue to grow, the fear will never go away. You're always going to live on the edge of fear, walking on that fine line, but it's learning how to walk that fine line and be okay with it and go beyond your comfort zone. And one of the other fear truths is that the only way to ever overcome the fear is just to feel the fear, but go and do it anyway. Just push on through the fear. And that's what I was talking about, that comfort zone a little bit earlier, that if you will continue to push on, and part of it is your subconscious mind is registering, hey, this is not the kind of person I am. This is not normal for me. And it's just not listening to your subconscious mind. It's you being dominant over your subconscious mind. That's why they call it subconscious. It's subservient. It's subservient to you. You tell the subconscious mind what to do with your conscious forebrain thinking. You tell the subconscious mind what to do. And you can actually speak to your subconscious mind, tell it to be quiet. You don't have a place to intrude here. You have to listen to me. And you speak to it just as if you're speaking to a person. And you just go on through that fear barrier and take dominion, take control of it through your words and through your actions. And the words that we speak, the more I study these different principles, the words are actually seeds. It's just as if you're going out and tilling up your garden spot out here and planting corns and rutabagas and carrots, onions, all that kind of stuff, or the things that we plant from seeds. Well, the words that you speak are actually the equivalent of seeds that you're planting within yourself. And so when you're making these different statements to yourself, well, this is not the kind of person that I am, or whatever, I'm afraid to do that. That's programming yourself for fear. So it's, no, I'm strong, I'm confident, I'm bold as a lion. The things that you speak to yourself, and that, along with what I was talking about earlier about my mind just went blank somewhat. Sorry, I did what I had a senior moment here, Samantha, like you had earlier. I was going someplace with that, but no, it's taking command of your language, and instead of there's a scripture passage that says the heart of the wise instructs his lips, or instructs his mouth, and adds persuasiveness to his lips. So the heart, the inner man of the wise, instructs his mouth. You actually teach your mouth what to say. You take command of your thoughts, take command of your mouth, so that you are speaking the things that you need to say. And yes, you are going to live on the edge of fear. Yeah, it's going to be scary. But like Sandy, like you said, when you read that, I was on that call. I heard you read that, and I thought you did a tremendous job. I was so proud of you for doing that. It's fantastic, the job that you did there. And it's like, yeah, you might be a little bit scared, but the only way to overcome that There's another book, is David Schwartz book. I can't, it's not coming to my mind, but he says the only way to overcome fear is to go and do it. You just go do it, and you screw up, you make mistakes, but something that I'm working on for myself is don't take myself quite so seriously. See, for a long time I took myself way too seriously, and I'm trying to learn once again. I used to laugh at myself, and then I went through these serious situations in life, and I took myself way too seriously. And I'm trying to learn how to, once again, laugh at, yeah, I screwed up. So what? Big deal. Who cares? You know, let's get it on down the highway, get over it, and let's just get it on down the highway and get it behind you. You know. So, anyways, killed a few minutes for you here, Samantha.
That's awesome, Dan. You know, it's interesting that we all kind of talked about not, you know, don't take yourself so seriously and that sort of thing. You know, I've kind of made it my goal just recently to just be the goofy self that I tend to be when I'm like hanging out with my daughter or whatever, you know. I mean, that's what I like to do, and you know, and a lot of times we think, okay, you know, we can't do that if we're trying to build a business, but the truth is that people are either going to like you or they're not, and if they don't, you're not probably going to like them either. So you only want to work with the people that are like you, who are going to like you, who you're going to get along with and have a good time with, and that's one of the ways that you attract other people into your life that can help you move forward. It's just kind of, you know, be courageous, and like I was saying, you know, have the courage to be yourself, to step outside your comfort zone just a little bit, follow that bright light that is pointing you in the right direction, because of course, you know, when you come across something that makes you a little nervous, that's the direction that you go. So guys, I just want to say thanks for hanging out with us. We're right at the top of the hour. It looks like maybe Sandy froze on this. She kind of froze up, maybe. I don't know. I think we're having a little bit of internet issues here and there. But for those of you who just kind of jumped on here at the last minute, I noticed that Susan, welcome, and who was it? Deshawn? Was that who it was? Deshawn? Yeah. So guys, welcome for coming. Thanks for hanging out with us. It doesn't matter that you're here a little bit late. As soon as we are done with this, it's going to automatically put the recording up so that you can just, you know, click stop and then click replay, and it'll just play from the beginning. So with that, guys, if you have not already jumped over and joined our Google Plus community, you can go to mindsetmasterycollective.com. Sandy's going to post the meditations with the binaural beats in there, the links to the YouTube videos. That's a great resource for visualization, and you know, and I use that as well. I actually have a recorded version of my major definite purpose and my personal mission statement and that sort of thing with binaural beats that I listen to while I sleep, and so that's really powerful. So with that, guys, I think I'm just going to wrap it up unless anybody else has anything you want to say to close out this week.
Have a great week, everybody.
Yeah.
Ciao, and thanks for coming. See you next time.
Awesome, guys. Have an awesome, amazing, wonderful weekend, and we will see you next Saturday at 10 a.m. Eastern for the Saturday Morning Mastermind. And have a great weekend. Bye for now.
Bye.
Woohoo! My computer made it!